Hello everyone. I decided to do this just off the cuff because I've been screen printing here in the studio for the last month, and I've been playing around with CYMK screen printing, which involves using, I won't go into the boring technical stuff too much, but it involves using cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. And if you know the process of screen printing, it involves these image processes that you do in Photoshop that are called bitmaps, where you change the image into this composite of dots. And in CYMK printing, you have to change the angle of the dots for each color, so they are positioned in different places as you print. So you end up with yellow first, then magenta on top, which becomes a kind of orange red, and then you throw on the cyan at the end, and it's my end, and I'm going to get into that later because I don't use black. I've arrived at this conclusion that using black, and you're told this actually as a painter very early on, dulls other colors. So I don't use black. I only use CYMK or CYM. So I'm interested in how paintings are transformed through the process. Now, an image of a painting is transformed, and it's bringing up some interesting results, because when you're transforming, just say, a pure photograph, not a painting. Of course, we're dealing with photographs exclusively here because that's what you use for screen printing, but what I mean is a photograph of a photograph. So if you use a photograph in this process, you immediately get really good results. I'm going to show you the results both in terms of photography and painting. Whereas painting is different. And I've started to enjoy this word fidelity. And usually when we talk about fidelity, it's kind of a loyalty or a faithfulness towards an entity, maybe fidelity, or to a partner. But I'm interested in the meaning of fidelity as resolution. Sometimes you get it in gaming culture. They talk about fidelity, and that is how a representation of reality, just say like a car game, lives up to the reality. So it's very key. This word fidelity is very key to our relationship now with the experience of visual art as an image. And this is my obsession at the moment. I've just finished a paper which will be published in the spring of 2027 on this phenomena, where we have, in a sense, given up the real world for the image of the real world, especially in relation to painting. But I'll talk about that another time. So this idea of fidelity is interesting in relation to screen printing, because screen printing is not painting. It's not photography. It's not a desk jet printer. It's not a laser printer, even though it has the kind of mechanistic quality of those machines. And I think that's why Warhol was so interested in it, because it removes subjectivity. And that's the difficulty of being a painter, I think. This idea of subjectivity and choice. The next movement of the brush, the next color choice, the tonal quality, the texture. There's so many variables when you pick up a paintbrush or a squeegee or whatever it is you're painting with. Whereas screen printing is very detached. It's a very detached mode of making marks. No more so than CYMK printing. But what I'm interested in, coming from the perspective of a painter, is that I like those slippages. I'm not looking for order. I'm not looking for precision. I'm actually looking for something that is more analog, that is closer to painting, especially when I'm trying to print images of paintings. So this idea of fidelity is becoming really important to me. It also is I love the word fidelity because it brings up the whole question of loyalty to a medium. And that's what I find interesting in terms of painters, this idea of loyalty. And it goes back to this idea of not just embodying a process, but the process embodying you. I was thinking about this philosophy of perception, and actually, I'm going to scratch that. I'm going to show you an image. I'm going to show you an image that I've screen printed. Now I'm going to have to set up my phone here, which gets a bit tricky. I'm going to try and get this into position. Okay, so this is a screen print I've been working on. I'm going to show you another one in a minute. So I'm working on these zines. They're based on a series of conversations I've had with artists over the last year. And what is interesting about them, the name of this series is Prosody 16. And prosody, the definition of prosody is the kind of elucidation or the sound of a voice. And this series of conversations with artists is just audio exclusively. And I was interested in sound. I was interested in the fidelity of sound. And I'm also interested, of course, in the fidelity of the image and how we compromise or not in terms of analog versus digital imagery. And of course we say out loud that the digital image is better than the analog. But of course people, when you think about vinyl records versus CDs or MP3s or WAVs or whatever it is, they all have different fidelities, different resolutions. And high definition doesn't always mean better. So these images that you see from the phone, which has a different fidelity than the computer in which I'm recording this through Zoom. The fidelity here, these two images are images of paintings by Damien Flood. And this painting is from 2008, and this is a more recent painting that I only have seen as an image, where I've seen this in the flesh, but also as an image. And this is one of my favorite paintings by Damien Flood. It's one of those works that really give a sense of the direction where he was going, and that he's actually continued in a way, even though this one is more located in landscape and the sludge of landscape in relation to painting. I think he used to call this collection of paint that he used to collect in his studio, he called it the shits. And sometimes he used to pour this onto painting, mixed up with linseed oil, destroying paintings, but actually bringing them together in a particular way. So this painting, you can see bits of the shits slipping into this, it looks like a mud bank, into this lake. I forget the name of the painting. He told me it recently, but lake is in the title. You get this little stub of a tree, and there's paint on that as well, and that's slipping off as well. And you have these branches of trees. The branch, the tree, the isolated trees is a repeated motif in his work. But what I love about this image, and I'll try and get this closer, is that it's both abstract and representational. And you get these beautiful bits of colour shining through. Now it is very abstracted, but it's a beautiful image, and it came up really well. I've left, you see here, it says CYMK in the colours that I've been using, and I've left these marks on the screens because I want to show them. I want to show the process. Here they are overlapping. This wasn't intentional, it just happened, but I retained them. So fidelity is the thing. I want to show you also a photograph, which is a very different thing. Okay, so here's a photograph. Now if I had to use black on this, which I haven't, I've only used CYMK. I've used a different blue as well, so it has this blue tone that overrides the image. And the fidelity in this seems better, I think, because I'm using a high definition image, and all the dots are being picked up. The dots haven't been destroyed in the process of bitmapping it, and it has a beautiful quality as well. Now if I bring in the black here, it's going to take away all these colours. But if you see up close, now there's some mistakes or some glitches because some of my screens are just very old. I don't have the cash actually to replace them, but so you get these glitches in it. But in some ways, that brings us closer to painting. These awkward glitches that aren't manufactured like AI. They have a quality, a kind of authenticity that I like. Okay, I'm going to put these aside for a second and bring this closer down. Okay, so so there's this book that my sister actually bought for me. Painting. It's one of those books that is, I don't know, I think it might say, no, it doesn't say year on it, I don't think. It was probably got in a second-hand store. Has all this kind of molded paper in it. But I love it because this is, books like these are how I fell in love with painting. Really small reproductions, the colour a little strained or strange. It starts with the primitives, Giotto, and it goes all the way towards Corot. Has list of plates here. But it's a beautiful little book. It has a deckled edge on it. Look at like the size of that. The Creation of Adam by Michelangelo. Tintoretto. But they're beautiful images. They're not digital, they're analog. Memling. Holbein. So, beautiful little book. And on the cover you have Vermeer, and you have these beautiful moments in this image. Low resolution, but it holds the quality or the fantasy of the image, the fidelity of a painting, that we can imagine beyond it. So it doesn't destroy it through this high definition, this way trying to capture the world as it is. It kind of simplifies the image because of the technology at the time, the printing process of the time. But there's a lot of care that has gone into this little book. the image itself is stuck on. So it's kind of like a plate, like an old plate that's stuck onto the cover in this inset. But it has a beautiful quality. And when I got the quality that I achieved, and like I love the photograph, okay? I don't know how Damien will feel about it. You know how artists feel about their own images. But if we can say a painting is a portrait, that old cliche of the artist, then this is as close as I've got to a painting so far. Now this was very difficult, there's mistakes here. So when I was pulling the ink across, you'll see here, there's a light blue there. So I didn't get the blue to fully cover it. Because I'm printing about 30, a 30 print run of these zines. And they're A3. This is an A3 size. You get a lot of mistakes. The paper is too thin to be printing on as well, but it's cheaper that way. I'm not going to be printing on 300 gram. So it buckles. But with CYMK or CYM, as I'm using it, because you're using dots of color, it doesn't buckle it as much as it would with just plain graphic color, block color. So yeah, that's where I'm at. But I'm really excited by this because I was trying to achieve something in screen printing that was unachievable. I was trying to get this high definition image of a painting. But I realized through the process that if I remove black, then I get closer to painting because it diffuses it. It doesn't create a kind of definition. It removes that definition, both in a literal and figurative sense. So fidelity is the word I'm going to start using from now on. I'm going to leave it there. I have lots of other things to say, but I will be in touch where myself and Damien are continuing to discuss where we're going with this project, the Unmade painting project. I've been talking to Damien about this, the non-use of black in printing. He's been talking about the crop in painting. And it's like how I've pulled up these images and got a detail. I think the crop is really interesting in relation to painting because it's something that we do naturally when we come up to a painting. It's like the whole image bores us or something, that we need to go in and anatomize it, kind of break it down and find, it's like what Roland Barthes talked about in relation to photography, that indexical, the punctum, that kind of personal pocket of space in a photograph that attracts you to it. It's not the whole photograph, but it's one piece within the photograph that makes the whole photograph make sense. And we're always searching for that. And I think in these prints, that has occurred somehow. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening, and thank you also for those who have been pledging actually money to me on Substack. I can't take it, of course, because I write. If I ever took money for what I'm writing, I'd feel I'd have to produce content all the time to back up that payment. So even though I acknowledge it now here, I could never take it. So thank you, and I will talk to you again.